Okay, well, if I get 1 crore rupees, not that anybody is asking me, but if I get 1 crore rupees, I think I would have just gone over to meet my favorite superstar, Enrique Iglesias. But hey, well, maybe another lifetime. But okay, well, the list is never ending, the demands are never ending, expenses are never ending, and incomes unfortunately do have their expiry date for a lot of us, save perhaps for a few lucky ones. And kids need to understand the concept of money from an early age. So hence we decided to have this conversation right here in our ET Now studio. So joining me right now is none other than Radhika Gupta, Chief Executive Officer of Edelweiss Asset Management, and we have two young gentlemen right here in the ET Now studios, Dhruv and Umang. So thank you boys for joining us. Now I'm sure you guys leave the money bit to your parents, right? I mean, the parents just give you all that little bit of your pocket money or your allowance. So this is your chance to attack Radhika with all the questions that you may be having about money, which your parents may not want to answer. But Radhika, just to start off this discussion with you first. Many a times, students, kids, children, they'll be like, hey, I mean, I just get that monthly allowance or a weekly allowance. What exactly could I possibly do with such a small sum of money? But do you think that, money management starts at that age of 13, 14? I mean, it's essential to inculcate that habit of managing your money well at that, your pre-teen age?
Absolutely, and I'm so happy that we're doing this, although the show makes me feel very, very old after hearing all three of you. It was interesting. I ran a poll on my social media handle with people of various age groups that, what age should personal finance be taught in schools? And it's not taught in schools, right? And most people said definitely high school. So at the age where, both of them are. So everybody believes that if I had to go back, I wish I had learned about money much earlier than I did. I mean, I started, learning about money when I was 19, 20. And that was many years too late, because it's not just about having an income, and it actually doesn't matter what that income is. Saving is a habit, and being aware of money is a habit. And the earlier you start it, the better. And I think the biggest reason for that is, when you do anything, you make mistakes, including money. And when you make mistakes on 100 and 500 rupees, by the time these guys are going to be earning lakhs and crores, which I'm sure they will, they won't be making those mistakes. Yeah. So starting early in your journey has a lot of benefits, and compounding is just one of them. But getting into the process early will make sure that, you're far ahead of your peers in the journey.
You mentioned that word compounding, and the fact that they are young, compounding all the more matters to them a lot. But I'm sure these guys still may not be entirely aware how the power of compounding works. So why don't you just elaborate on that a bit more?
So I think, they say there's no free lunch in finance. And there's a very famous quote that compounding is the only free lunch. So if you had 100 rupees today and you invested it, and say you got 10% return on that, how much would you have? You'd have 110 rupees at the end of the year, right? So then what will you be investing? You'll be investing 110 rupees. Now say that you got 10% again on it. What would you be getting? What's 110 times 10? It's 121, right? So it's more than 120. So every year you've invested, whatever you've invested, you've got gains on that, and then you're investing just a little bit more. So if you do this exercise over here, instead of 120, you're actually earning 121 in 2 years. Now imagine doing this over 5 years, 10 years. So that's what compounding is, and it kicks in much more than we think. And if you do this math on a calculator, you'll be surprised at how much the power of compounding kicks in.
In fact, I'll just ask my producer as well to pull up that graph if she can. Very interesting graph. What we did is we took the examples of two people. One started investing at the age of 25, the other started investing at the age of 30. And you'll be surprised at the difference in the wealth that they've accumulated by the time they reach 55, 60. The difference really widens because of the power of compounding. It's just basic mathematics.
In fact, I met a financial advisor in Baroda, and he told me my daughter, he introduced me to his daughter, and he said she's going to be richer than Warren Buffett. And he said it with a great amount of confidence. Wow. And I said, why? He said, well, Buffett started investing at the age of 14 or 15 or whatever it is. She started investing at the age of 3. I mean, I did it for her. Yes. So obviously, compounding is going to work more for her than it did for Buffett.
You guys have your parents, by the way, to blame if you've not invested.
Yes, you
Actually,
do,
I'm
and you
not
can
blaming-
go back and tell them.
You can go back and tell your parents. But yeah, you're 14, you're 15.
Yeah.
So that's still a great age to start off with. Now, Radhika, we are saying invest.
Yeah.
But what do you mean by invest? And is it for them? I mean, they're just in school, they're just in the 9th standard. They may not even be having, no, okay, you do have your Aadhaar card, but you may not be having certain documents that are needed after 18. So
Yeah.
when you say invest, what exactly do you mean by that?
So you can invest in the name of a minor. So you
Okay.
can invest in the name of a 3-month-old today. In fact,
Okay.
I know, people in the office who've had kids and who started investing on day one. So being an adult or child does not mean that you shouldn't invest. In fact, I think it's very relevant to start doing investments in your name, because tomorrow you guys will want to pursue higher education. You will have other goals. Maybe you'll want to start a business when you're 25, and I started one when I was 25, and you'll need a corpus to do that. So investments can start two ways for a kid. One is your parents investing money in your name for a specific goal that you may have as children. Secondly, as you grow, you'll earn pocket money. Maybe you'll do some side job or some side internship or something to get money where you'll earn what looks like a measly sum of money. But that also can give you some experience in investing, so to say.
So guys, do you all have, by the way, any goals of what you all want to do, or something that you want to buy? Maybe you want to buy, like, I know that one of the young kids out there wanted to buy an iPhone 11
Yeah,
plus,
everybody
and I
seems
think
to.
that in itself is a goal because of the cost of the phone, right? So yeah, I'm sure you guys as well have something that you want to achieve for yourself. You may want to go abroad to study when you turn 18 or perhaps 20.
Wow.
That was the balloon bursting. Kids may be used to the sound, but we aren't.
Yes.
Okay, but yeah, by the time you turn 18 or 21, you may want to go abroad to study, and obviously, so what I want you all to think about that goal you all want to achieve, and I want you all to ask Radhika about how you all can achieve that. I'm going to give you all a couple of minutes to do that, but yeah, in the meanwhile, Radhika, I'll ask you something on savings. Now, for kids nowadays, they get the money for two purposes. One is travel, rather three. One is for traveling, conveyance. The second is for eating a snack or two, and then the third is for perhaps catching that occasional movie with friends, or going bowling. So how realistic is it when we talk about savings for them? Because the allowance amount obviously is a bit small, and with the PVR costing 400 rupees and Uber costing 200, though I hope you guys are not using PVR and Uber, but yeah, then what's left at the end of the day, right? So how would you write?
No, I think if any kid has and I know, money doesn't go a long way in the
Yes.
world that we live in. But I think if you asked and I remember doing this exercise as a teenager, if you told your parents you were interested in just developing saving as a habit and asked them to give you your allowance plus 200-300 rupees more, I doubt any parent would say no. The good thing about investing today is you can start with a very small amount of money just to experiment. The other good thing is that even if you don't have money to start investing, there are so many primers and shows where you can learn about it. There are lots of places where you can actually build dummy portfolios, do dummy investments just to get familiar with the terminology. One of the scariest things for many people, including adults, about investing is all these terms. Just as a child or as a teenager, you can start reading about them. Many of you might be even taking economics classes, so you can start putting it all together. You can start reading the news. So all of that stuff can start happening, but you can definitely go to your parents and say, look, I just want to try this. Can I have the cost of a movie ticket is what, 500 rupees, 400 rupees with the popcorn, etc. Add 500 rupees to your allowance every month to start investing. It's not that much money when you put it in the context of Uber and PVR.
Okay. Or you can watch the Money Show. Every day we talk about just this investing money and what are mutual funds. So by the way, guys, have you all thought of goals? And the reason why I'm asking for goals is because when you invest money, we always say, financial advisors as well say you should invest money when you have a goal. For example, you want to buy a house, or you want to buy a fancy car, or you're saving it for your child's education, etc., which obviously is not valid for you guys. So let's start off with you. Dhruv, have you thought of a goal that you'd like to have?
Yeah, like I'm 14 years old and I would like to save money for my further educations.
Lovely.
Which I would do maybe in abroad. So in what way can I save my money? So if I start with 500 rupees, so where can I invest that money?
Okay. So I think obviously further education abroad is expensive, and I think it's actually very relevant. So if you want to save money, and I'll come to you separately, but if you want to save money for further education, and I did my education overseas, so maybe I can talk about this in something. Look at the cost of what that education is today. Go to a university that you may want to go to 4 years down the line. Remember that the cost of that university 5-7 years later when you go is going to be some percentage higher. Usually foreign university costs in my experience rise by about 5% a year, which is a very large number. Plus remember, when your parents are going to pay that bill for the foreign university education, it's going to be in US dollars, not Indian rupees. And the Indian rupee moves vis-a-vis the US dollar. So start, and then that is your goal. So if you have to spend, say $200,000 a year or $100,000 a year or whatever it is, work backwards and have a conversation with your parents that maybe we can do an investment in your name right now towards that. The only way you will be able to beat that 5% a year that costs rise by is doing an investment today that maybe grows at 8, 10, 12% a year. Otherwise, it will be very difficult. You on the side should separately start taking your 500 rupees and investing a month. I think as a child, one of the benefits you have is a longer term time horizon. You also need growth. So you can start looking at doing an equity mutual fund. For instance, if you're going to start with an SIP, you can start with an SIP in a very basic, what we call diversified equity fund, which will give you the returns of the sort of best companies in India. So that's something you can start with because you have time on your side. But obviously you'll need your parents' support to make that foreign education goal happen.
Yeah, 500 of course per month, even if you consider that you want to go after 4 years in your case, or maybe post grad 7 years, will still unfortunately not cut out. You will need some, but it's great that you're thinking in a way that you as well can contribute to your foreign education. And SIP, by the way, Radhika, if you could tell them how low should the amount be? I mean, how low can it go for you to start an SIP? What's the limit?
So most schemes will let you do an SIP with as little as 500 rupees a month. There are some that will let you do even 100 rupees a month. I suggest you commit 500 rupees a month to it if you can, so that the amount is a little bit meaningful. And by the end of the year, at least you've put 6,000 rupees into it, and hopefully it compounds over 4-5 years. You've accumulated 25 to 50,000 kind of. So you also feel, that you are achieving a goal at the end of every year. And as I said, 500 rupees is not large in the context of what all we spend money on today.
Yeah, true. Okay, yeah. By the way, guys, we were being a bit presumptuous perhaps in assuming that you guys know an SIP, a systematic investment plan. What it does is basically every month you have to put money in a mutual fund. And it just lets the magic of compounding, like we've been saying, work for you. So every month, whether the market is down, I'm sure you guys are aware of what the Nifty and Sensex does. It goes up one day, goes down one day. So by putting 500 rupees every month, what would be ideal, right? You're buying when it's low and you're selling when it's high. So you're buying when it's low, you're buying when it's high as well. So your cost is average out. You don't have to worry about, catching the top or catching the bottom.
And it happens automatically, which is kind of cool. So you don't need to think about, I need to save this money this month and then I need to do it. That's a big issue for us. And then, you don't need to worry, okay, this is going to take away from my iPhone or this or that. It just happens. It kind of is a problem that is outsourced. I like to say that.
Okay, now Umang, what about you? Have you got any goal in your mind about
yes.
Yeah. Sure, go ahead.
I would like to live a luxurious life in the future, like a big house and everything.
Okay.
So if I start with 1,000 rupees, how can I save more and more every year?
So I think so it's a great aspiration to have, and all of us must dream of a luxurious lifestyle.
Big, of course.
And it's important to dream big, because if you dream big, you'll get there. I think it's important. See, today your saving and earning capacity is very limited, but you should get into the habit of saving. I would again recommend the same. And since you can do this, again, I would recommend equity for you. Your earning capacity will grow every year. Maybe 2 years from now, you'll be in high school. And, I used to do summer jobs in high school and we used to earn some money. So if you ever earn any big lump sum money, make sure you also put that in. And, with kids, the thing is, your earning potential is only going to rise every year. So your investment amount has to rise year on year. And as it does, you will see your lifestyle able to grow. What you earn at 22 is very different from what you'll earn at 35.
Okay, all right. Well, folks, like we told you, the earlier you start, the better, because the power of compounding works in magic ways. We are talking a lot about mutual funds, etc. But would you like to also tell them a bit about the banking instruments out there? Do you guys own a savings account, by the way?
Yeah, I think I
You
have
think
one,
you do? Okay, you're not sure yet.
Yeah,
okay.
I don't know.
So, Radhika, how important would a student having a savings account in his or her own name be for you, according to you?
So everybody should have a savings account. There are a few things that you should do. So money should never sit idle. It should not sit in cash. Even if you have any cash, it should sit in an account. A savings account today earns you 4% odd interest. So you should make sure definitely that your money sits in a savings account. If you want to be a little more evolved, a savings account earns 4% interest. You can invest in the basic mutual fund instrument called a liquid fund. It does the same thing, invests in safe bank deposit kind of instruments, and that earns about 6%. So rather than putting money in a savings account, the next logical step is to put it in a liquid fund. Interest is the basic thing that you must earn. If you're not earning interest, then you're not even covering the cost of price increases that you see. You're not even covering the cost of inflation. So make sure that you earn interest. The simplest form is a savings account. The next most simple form, I would say, is a liquid fund. And both of these are reasonably risk-free ways to earn that basic return on your money.
By the way, you mentioned inflation, and I know these guys are vaguely aware of inflation. And they're so young, so they're going to see, unfortunately, a longer period of inflation, and expenses are only going to rise. So if you could just also give them a brief introduction on that.
So, the great thing is, it's good you guys are aware of inflation. Many adults don't realize the value of inflation and how it eats into their money. Ask your parents in 1970 what it cost to go to PVR. They probably, or the equivalent theatre, they probably would say 1 rupee. And the cost of everything, whether it is onions or movies or petrol, rises. Now, inflation in India typically is about 4% a year. Okay, so if you have 100 rupees today, actually in the next year your 100 rupees is only worth 96 rupees. Because your cost of living has gone up, your rent is more expensive, your food is more expensive. So if your money is not growing at 4%, actually you're getting a negative return. You've gone from 100 to 96. So that's another reason why it's important to invest. And it's important to do more than just put money in a bank account, because you have to beat inflation. Inflation is running at 4%, you definitely have to earn more than 4%. Otherwise, actually you're earning what you call investment return minus inflation is your real rate of return, actually the real return. You can't have negative real return.
Okay, guys, by the way, do you have any other follow-up questions you'd like to ask Radhika?
Yes.
Sure, go ahead.
Yes.
Would you please tell us how does inflation affect mutual funds returns?
Sure. So, inflation affects everything. It's a very evolved question. Mutual funds have different returns, but inflation affects the total return of the Nifty. So, the total economic return that you have will be inflation plus the underlying growth of India. If inflation is low, then total market returns will tend to be a little lower. If inflation is high, returns will be higher. But from your point of view, what's important is that the return that you are earning on your money has to beat the rate of inflation. Otherwise, as I said, you will get negative returns. Also remember, sometimes people don't understand this with mutual funds. Every mutual fund doesn't have the same return. There are 40 kinds of mutual funds out there. There are mutual funds that are very safe, like liquid funds that I told you, and there are mutual funds that invest in some of the smaller companies in India that are obviously far more risky. The safer ones will give you much lower rates of return. The more aggressive ones will give you much higher rates of return, but obviously the risk will be very different. So also remember that when you're trying to make an investment decision.
Okay. So, guys, I think you have your task cut out now. When you guys go home, I hope Radhika's been able to help you all out with exactly what you all are supposed to do. If there's any money your grandparents have given you, or your parents have given you, or any other generous relatives have given you in this Diwali, I hope you guys know that you all should not blow it away, and you'll have such great aspirations and ambitions for yourself. So wish you all the very best, and thank you so much for joining us. And Radhika, always a pleasure having you as well. Thank you so much for all your valuable lessons.
Thank you.